Joining me now to discuss, Avery Friedman, a civil rights attorney and law professor in Cleveland. Good to see you. And Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney, joining us from Las Vegas. Good to see you as well. All right, so Richard, you first. If you're his attorney, how do you interpret that? Is that a mixed bag of kind of good news, bad news, and maybe no news?
Oh, if I'm Flynn's attorney, I'm happy, and I'm telling everyone, oh, he's got a story. You want to hear him out because you want to get immunity for him. Fred, he's a 3-star Army general, former head of national security, many meetings with Russian Ambassador Kislyak. You figure this guy's got information, and as his attorney, you want to protect him. The problem is, Comey is really leading the charge with the FBI investigation and the Department of Justice, whether or not they're going to bring criminal charges against Flynn. I think they eventually will bring criminal charges, and that's why they want to get the immunity. Congressional immunity is not the same as immunity from Department of Justice, but we learned during the Oliver North cases, if he gets congressional immunity either through the Senate or the House, then whatever he says in that testimony can't be used against him if they prosecute him by the Department of Justice. Either way, they want him to deliver Trump. That's what they want. They want him to say Trump knew, participated, aided, abetted the Russians in the hack. If he can't deliver that, or if he can deliver that, but we can't believe him because his credibility is shot and there's no way to corroborate it, there's going to be no deal.
So then, Avery, how will any of the committees or the FBI, anybody, know that if he were not to at first reveal what he knows before they could even make a deal?
Well, yeah, that's not going to happen. The problem is, if I'm a prosecutor, I use immunity with the little fish so they flip so we can get the big fish. Michael Flynn's already the big fish. The only one he can flip on is the president. And you sort of kind of have to keep your eye on the ball. When the sanctions kicked in on the 29th of December, all this stuff happened quickly. Russian ambassador calls, of all people, Flynn, that was his Russian connection. There's a meeting, and then Putin says, oh, I'm not going to retaliate. And then Trump says he's very smart. And then after that, Sally Yates, the acting attorney general, who was supposed to testify, Frederica, all of a sudden she's canceled by the Intelligence Committee. So there are a lot of things that are happening. Bottom line, no immunity, not from the House, not from the Senate, not from the FBI.
So then, okay, go ahead, Richard.
I would say, to answer your question, you had a great question. How do they know? They give him what's called typically a queen for a day, where they bring him in with his lawyer, and they say to him, okay, whatever you say today, we're not going to use it, but what are you going to deliver? To get immunity, what are you going to tell us? And they sit down, and either they do it through the attorney as an attorney proffer, or he sits there and he tells them, this is what I will say under oath if given the opportunity. Then they have to determine, what are the crimes he committed? Do they even know the scope of crimes he committed? That's my next question, actually.
That's my next question. What potentially is the crime that he could be afraid of?
Well, he could be afraid of treason, aiding and abetting in treason. He can be afraid of failing to disclose financial payments from foreign countries. He can be failure to file as an agent. I mean, he's got 4 or 5 or 6 major felonies that he's facing here. But they don't want him. They want the president. That's who they want, Fred.
Okay, Avery?
Yeah, I mean, we've got false. What we don't know is what Sally Yates is going to tell the House Intelligence Committee. What kind of contact was there between Flynn and the FBI that we don't know about? And right at the point where Sally Yates was going to testify, the hearing gets canceled. So eventually, we're going to hear about that, whether there's queen for a day, whatever it's going to be. I'm telling you, there's not going to be immunity unless there's some ability to implicate the president. I doubt that there is. I don't think there's going to be any kind of immunity deal at all.
And it's interesting, there are differences in, I guess, the interpretation of what immunity means. I mean, take a listen to what Flynn and then candidate Trump had to say about immunity, particularly when they were talking about Hillary Clinton.
When you are given immunity, that means that you've probably committed a crime.
And if you're not guilty of a crime, what do you need immunity for, right?
So now the shoe's on the other foot, so to speak. Avery?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, look, the worst that we have right now is unadulterated hypocrisy. That's not a crime. The fact is that it becomes more complicated when Flynn and his attorney try to sit down, whether it's congressional committees, whether it's the FBI, because unless he can implicate Trump, he's got nothing, and he's facing a number of crimes.
And in a tweet from the president on immunity, he is actually encouraging Mike Flynn should ask for immunity, and that this is a witch hunt excuse for big election loss by media and Dems of historic proportions. Richard.
Yeah, it's a witch hunt controlled by the Republicans who control everything. That's ridiculous, Fred. And it's ridiculous that Sean Spicer on a daily basis insults the intelligence of the American people when you see the video of Trump saying, if you're looking for immunity, you must be guilty of something. And then Trump says he ought to get immunity. And Spicer says, well, that doesn't mean he's guilty. I mean, the hypocrisy, you said it, Fred. They have to analyze the crimes Flynn committed, what his testimony would be. Is that testimony credible? Because just because you have the immunity and you give testimony doesn't mean it's believable or it'll hold up.
Exactly
so they have to make sure his testimony holds up. And in the end, Fred, they're using Flynn to get to Trump. That's who they want. They don't care about any of these other peripheral characters.
We actually agree on that.
All right. So quickly, any predictions on whether you believe, by way of any of these three entities that we just mentioned, whether Michael Flynn would get immunity?
I think he's going to ultimately get it from someone, Fred. I think they want his testimony, and he won't deliver it without immunity.
Well, we disagree on that. There's zero chance. He has no credibility, and if he can't deliver Trump, there's no value, no immunity.
All right. We always love it when you all agree, but we love it even more when you disagree. Avery and Richard.
That's easy. That's easy to do, Fred.
See you later. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, gentlemen.
With
Good
pleasure.
to see you.